As some truth comes to light, so also does the squeakiness of the true revelation. And while some may argue that all of this is actually, well, a little bit forced in some cases, in other cases it actually does make sense, because this is exactly how Hiroshima writes. But it also creates the biggest suspense, that is basically no answer is still given. But there's very likely that everything we have seen up until now have not been the true enemy. And that is the most exciting part of all. Because that means we have been deflected of everything else. So yeah, while it is still flawed, it is what it is. This is how Hiroshima writes, so you just have to accept it and be quiet. This is me, the Angry Man, fan that is very reviewer, although I technically only review Eden Zero, and this is the late review of Eden Zero 209. First off, a cover page. Delinquent sister with Moscow as her underling. Makes sense. It seems Dead End Crow was disintegrated together with Crow last time, and with that, even even Feather says that Crow Cure is dead too. A little bit of a waste, but given what they say also in this chapter, I will actually not be surprised if he did survive. I would have actually preferred if he survived so we could come back a new threat, but nah, this is Hiroshima. He never does that, so you just have to accept it. The Union Army even says they're not here to fight the Eden Zero nowadays. But they also recently find out who Q really was, because, and here they say something pretty interesting, which in my case is kind of, what? And that is that the member of the Russian says Interstellar have hardly ever met in person. Every single council they had was online. We know for the fact that Justice met Jaguar, that we know. But all the other have always been through communications online. And so Feather never had any interest in location. So she says that Cure all this time have always been inside of Dead End Crow. And Cure's ship that was piloting over there was always unarmed. I mean unharmed. So she checked his location for the first time and discovered that it was the exact same as Dead End Crow. And it always has been for 13 years. And every one of the Alien Zero points out the obvious fact that that makes no sense. How could he not manage to get caught for more than a decade if he was working with the same person that had the same power as Noah? And Feather just says it was a failure on her part. I think this is a more than a failure. A lot of people would actually argue that this is a flaw in writing, because, again, that doesn't make any sense. But in a way, I would actually defend them and say, yes, that makes perfect sense. It is a failure on Feather's part, simply because, well, she is just... she said it herself, she wasn't interested in locating a friend's location. And Dead End Crow had ether jammers inside of himself. So... it would be surprising if you somehow could jam his location. And the fact that Eraser is defending Feather, saying this makes them all stupid. And Cure had makes some things to do it. To be in flaw, then makes them all stupid. But when Holy janked them up inside, the camouflage shield disappeared, and so the location was revealed. Although Hermit points out the most amusing thing of it all is the fact that when Feather says it was my fault for not taking interest in my friends, it is Hermit who says, then can you really call them your friends? Which is very likely I don't think the Interstellar ever considered themselves truly allies. That is why Cure could manage to flow it on. Now they need to talk about Cure later because they need to deal with Aknoela and the swarm of dragons that are getting out of hand. The Eden Zero will back them up after, well, it takes some time for them to heal. But then the warrior maiden get back together with the deceased mother, along with the the living mother of Saint Noxfire. And so Homura flies back, and the rest of the crew are just very shocked seeing the deceased bodies of their mother. And with the reveal that Siggy has been collecting the dead mothers, they are also very shocked. But the biggest shock of all comes from Connor, who looks at Saint Fire Nox and then calls her Rachel, revealing the fact that all this time Rachel Saint Fire Rachel Noxfire has always been the wife of Connor, ergo making him the father of Rebecca, which he somehow find out. And that makes it a little bit of the squicky part, especially the fact that, in the old universe, Connor bathed together with Homer and Rebecca. Did he know who Rebecca was in that place too? Although maybe he wasn't Rebecca's father in that universe. And didn't he look at her ass a little bit when they were in the, when they were landing in the blue planet? So yeah, this is kind of squicky. The fact that always drooling over naked ladies. Has he drooled over the daughter too? I mean, if his sister was another thing, but this is not. So so how did he figure it out? I don't really know. But Sister says that the fact that Sister and Hermito figured that out just shows that they have been very keen on keeping it in mind. So they're gonna bring Noxfire back to life, but the rest of the gang will do the fire. Elsewhere, the Rebecca still looks at all those deceased mother and just feels like it's a bit unfair that she'd have never known her mother, but her mother is the only one who is alive. Because it feels like this is once again a little bit annoying of the fact that Rebecca keep on blaming herself, but it is meant to show that Rebecca is a very huge empath and has a very deep heart. I think this is meant to show that she is different than anyone else. And also the key in saving the universe. So Wise once again acts as a conscience by saying that I may not know about Jin and them, but we got to spend time with our mothers. You didn't get that, so maybe this is the universe telling them to giving it a chance. Of course, Rebecca is still not very happy about them, but giving them back to the stars is a very highly motivation of it all. Back to the Pino getting to Shiki's side, she reveals that Ziggy hacked her, and the fact that he apparently left a data trail behind him, which Ziggy arrogantly says that he will never be so careless. But that is a key to defeating him. It's during this time though that Shiki remembers his own theory about wondering did he know that Ziggy know he was gonna go crazy. So Pino activates her EMP, but it knows it won't work on him. It's during this time though that Pino enters her own overdrive form. Yes, she has an overdrive form, although it doesn't really look that much advanced. She gets somewhat horns and gets back to her original dress that she wore when we first found her, and also now getting fairy wings. It is a very cute moment, and it's pretty funny that Pino of all uh, people do have an overdrive. But please do not kill her off. And so it is the fact that she pointing out that the data trail left behind in Pino wasn't the Siggy here. There was the old Siggy who left behind the data trail. Because there always been the old Siggy inside. So by using the overdrive EMP, she manages to temporarily shut down the evil Siggy, and so awakens back the old Siggy, who says that the Siggy is asleep for now. So please kill me. And while a lot of people may say that doesn't make any sense, I for one says yes, it makes perfect sense. I have always believed that the old Siggy has always been inside of the evil Siggy. Or should we call him Shiki at that time? Because he calls Siggy his evil self. Which in a way makes sense, seeing that the evil Siggy always called himself that, not Shiki, because he despised his past self. So the biggest question now is, what is going to happen now? The next chapter is called The Real Enemy. And if we go with the fact that there has always been traces that the old Siggy has been inside. Let's not confuse this. If Light Siggy has been inside of Dark Siggy all this time, yes, as we always theorized, then how come Dark Siggy has existed? That is the biggest question we have to get answered. And why does Light Siggy still exist inside of Dark Siggy? Does that mean that Light Siggy has always been true as well? Again, there have been many inconsistencies, and Hermit said that herself. So we need to have some answers, but I don't think we'll get them. Next chapter is called The Real Enemy. And if we have a real enemy, then that means that the main antagonist we've been following up until now may not really be the final antagonist at all. And that, my friends, is the real exciting part. So give me your thoughts if you have any.